Foundation for allowing me to put this candidate forum on, to the candidates participating tonight, to those who submitted questions for consideration online, and to all of you in the audience for your interest and engagement. Local elections are very important and have low turnout historically. Every vote is important, and I expect this forum to last about 1 hour. I took care to select questions that I believe will help us get to know each candidate better and that don't require having a level of knowledge of district workings that only an experienced board member should have. I'm not asking questions that pit candidates against one another. I'm not asking questions that are answered in the law or that are outside the scope of school board work. The key functions of school board service are hiring a superintendent and setting district policy that should not go against the law. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer each question that I ask. I will change the order they answer in throughout. None of them have seen the questions or been given any opportunity to prepare, so I ask that you give them grace as they must think quickly. None of these questions contain any identifiable information about who submitted them. The floor will not be open for additional questions once I've ended the session. Please be respectful of the candidates as they exit tonight, remembering they are district parents and residents who want to serve on this team, and they're not expected to have background knowledge in running for office. I will note that the seating order up here was entirely random, so don't read into that at all in any way. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the questions now. I will start by asking that Brian answers first, and then we will go down the row. Then for the second question, Andy will answer first, and we'll go down the row and come back. Then Katie will answer first, and so on. This program is being recorded for playback later. So Brian, you going first. Please introduce yourself and express your main motivation for running for school board.
I get the easy one to start with. My name is Brian Gatsky. I've been a resident of the school district for about 9 years now. We moved here from Watertown. 3 children who attend the school. All of them are in middle school right now. My desire to join the school board is I want to keep giving back to the community. Since we moved here, I've been coaching my kids and other kids, some whose kids or parents are here in sports, and I've grown to really care for this district and the kids, and I want to see them to keep succeeding. And the kids are all in the age now where they're being coached by others, so I've got some free time, and I just want to keep giving back.
My turn.
Yes, please.
My name is Andy Benz. I've been in the district for pretty much 48 years since I was born. I just am doing this because I also have had 3 daughters that have gone through the district. 2 are currently in it, 1's graduated from here, and I just want to make sure the school stays on course. This community is growing, and we just put common sense first in the classroom and everything else.
My name is Katie Wetzel. I've lived in the district for 19, almost 20 years. We have 3 kids who are currently in school in the district and have been since they were in 4K. And historically, in the past elections, there hasn't always been a lot of people who have put their names in to run for school board. And as I get to work with the students in a lot of ways, they deserve people who care and are invested. And so we have a great administration, great teachers, great kids. And if this is something I can step up and do to help them, I'm in for it.
I'm Justin Regev. I have a 6-year-old that is currently in kindergarten here. She's been in school for 3 years. My wife teaches here. She's been teaching here for longer than we've known each other. I don't want to put a number on it. I think it's 13 years. The reason why I ran for school board is to serve, support, and for accountability. Serve our students. They're the reason that we are here. It's our job to make sure that they have the support that they need. Support our staff. They're the ones in the front lines teaching our students everything that they learn every day. And then accountability. Our community deserves accountability and a strong schools.
Christina Norby, mother and business owner in the area. I'm super excited that now, as many of you remember, I ran last time as a write-in. Now I'm actually on the ballot, so it'll be a lot easier this time. But like any job, I've been here for 3 years. Now I know sort of what's going on and how things work. So I'm excited to be able to put that work to use for the betterment of our students with, continued academic growth, with our finances, making sure every dollar counts, and of course, communicating with transparency with everybody in the community. We've got great things going on in our school, and we want to make sure that everyone is aware of what great things we have happening here.
Thank you all. We'll let Andy start with the second question. What do you believe is the primary role of our school district in a small rural community setting like ours?
I think the primary role is to ensure that our students get a well-balanced education, have every opportunity that can be possible for them. And that is several facets. I think we need to emphasize on the trades as well as going to four-year colleges for these kids, because it's a huge part of the world, and you can make a wonderful living and a great living in the trades as well as going to a four-year college. And I think just as long as everyone gets a fair shake and everything's fair, and that's about it,
Okay. That's a great question. So I think where we are in Jefferson County, I feel like we're kind of in a sweet spot, right? We are in a rural county, we're in a rural area, but we have access to a lot of bigger things. That being said, sometimes it's easier to look at the bigger things outside of here, right? And say, well, the grass is greener in other districts. And my experience is that that's just not the case. We have a very strong school district here. And so I think, right, how do we set our kids up for success? How do we set them up for success if they do want to stay in rural Jefferson County? How do we set them up for success if they do want to go on to other things that might be outside of this area? And so, right, I mean, academics, regardless of what you're going to go into, academics is really important. I agree with Andy's point, right, on the trades. Not everyone is built or gifted in an academic realm, and so how can we support that? Right, we have a lot of students that have special needs, and so how can we provide those services to them as a small rural district? That's a challenge. It is a challenge, but how can we set all of our kids up for success? One of the biggest ways we can do that is also to, right, make sure that we have strong staff. We need to have teachers who want to live here, work here, invest in our students here. And then that goes up to having good administration, right? Nobody wants to work for a place that they feel like doesn't have good leaders or good administration. So I think it goes all the way up into setting that baseline to make sure we have strong students coming out of the district.
All right. Our primary role for the district in a rural community is, in my opinion, to offer just as much as it can as other districts do in larger communities. Growing up, I grew up in a large district, Oconomowoc, so obviously there were lots of different sports and other extracurriculars, and it's amazing how many of those things are here in this district. That's the reason why we moved here when our daughter was born, so that she could also experience those things, even though it is a smaller community.
The primary role of our district would be to partner with the parents in providing the best setup for our kids in the later part of life, whether that be going to college, whether that be in the trades. We've got a lot of great programs. I know they've won a lot of awards and different things for some of their welding, all the different areas. So many have gone to different college and academics. So both being set up, this secondarily short to that is also a place to belong. So here it's amazing how the kids all get to know each other in the halls, and the adults as well, and even out and about in the community. It's just fun to be, at a parade and then they see each other and they're so excited. So I just love being able to be part of that and create a place where we can belong and prepare all of our kids for the future.
All right. I believe the role of the school district is, to continue working, in concert with the community. As the school succeeds, as we provide a well-rounded education, giving, like Andy said, everyone the opportunity to go into whatever, final path they want to go. It's college, if it's into the trades, if it's directly in the workforce. We're providing that kind of education, those kind of opportunities, that provides a more enticing environment for other people or other businesses to move into the community, provides for community growth. As the school district grows, the community grows, and vice versa.
Thank you. Katie, we'll start with you for the third question. how will you make decisions that balance academic rigor with students' mental health and real-world challenges?
Yeah. I think it's a different world now, maybe than when some of us were in school, right? Just the world has changed in a lot of ways. And so I think I'm going to be honest and say I don't know what the answer to that is exactly, right? But I think what we do see is that there is an issue with it. And so how do we prepare our students to be strong, as we're talking about academically, to move on to other things, but recognize the current world situation that we're in. And so I do think we already have like some great counselors at school, right? There is an aspect of that we are looking at and supporting more than I think historically we used to, right? I think those are things that we didn't used to acknowledge. And so even over the time that my kids have been in the district, I've seen those services kind of become more robust, which is a really good thing. As a district, right, as every school district does, there's still state standards, and that's being looked at. And so I think it's not necessarily a matter of saying, well, okay, we don't like that system. We have to work within the system that we have. And so how can we still set our sights high, achieve those things, but give students the support that they need? So I don't necessarily have a specific answer on that, except to say it's something that we continually need to look at and see how we can help students and staff in that area.
Mental health obviously is kind of a taboo topic, right? No one wants to admit that there are mental health issues in the world or even in their family. Some things that our district does well is they offer programs. I know Ms. Pustina does a good job with sources of strength, offering those programs to students, the community members, as well as outside community members to utilize if they would like to. So just continuing that type of program and offering more of that as well.
One of the things that can lead fastest to mental health problems is feeling that you cannot achieve because you're not challenged, or that you're just simply overwhelmed. So I've seen amazing teachers working with kids to meet them where they are and help them move to that next level. I think that's super important, and it's an amazing aspect of our smaller school being able to sort of tailor in that way to each individual student. So I'd say that partnered with, as far as the real world experience, being part of this community. I love to see the different business partners and stuff come in, and a lot of our kids end up working at local businesses, so they're getting some of that work experience before they even graduate. And I just love that community and that collaboration between the two comes together.
Personally, I think that right now, from personal experience, the school is doing a great job handling that, the intersection between academic rigor and mental health. I know that there are children that have teacher mentors that they can go to. They need it, and continuing that. Obviously, every child can't have their own teacher mentor, but maintaining communication and being open and honest about it, and letting kids know that it's okay to have mental health issues. It's okay to have anxiety. It's okay to not feel right. And providing the teachers with the training to be able to handle it, to recognize it, because they're not always going to be told. They're going to have to figure it out. I think advancing that and then continuing along the good work, like the Sources of Strength, which my 3 children are part of, will go a long way towards helping them.
I agree with Brian. I think that there has to be an intricate support network for kids that have mental health issues, because it is as real as the concrete we're standing on, and it's prevalent, and there's some stigma still associated with it, unfortunately, but it needs to be identified. The kids need to be stimulated, they need to be challenged. They can't be feeling like they're on their own. They can't be left behind, can't fall through the cracks. It's an issue that's touched my family personally. I completely understand it, and there has to be somebody for them to go to talk to deal with things, because it's like a poison. If they hold it in and don't feel like they're getting their help, it's just going to fester and get worse and worse and just degrade their whole self-worth. So it's a huge issue, and fortunately I think it's going to get to be a larger issue as time goes on. So it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed properly, and I don't have the proper answer for that, but there's people that spend their lives learning how to do that, and we need to find the best people we can to do it and get them here and list them.
Justin, we'll start with you on the next question. How do you define student success, and how will you support teachers in reaching it?
Student success is like continuous improvement. Year over year, making sure that our goals are how we grade ourselves continues to improve. Giving our staff the tools necessary to do that is our job as potential board members. It's great to see the strides that our district has made with our success. Our test rates have gone up very high. They're very high compared to neighboring districts and also districts in the conference. So continue that improvement year over year.
Ultimately, student success would be learning to read and write properly. There's certainly a lot of other things, a lot of other classes, but if they're set up properly for that, they can learn anything and go anywhere. I love our QIT. It's basically where the teachers come together and they tell us, hey, we could really use X, Y, Z. They teach things on their own, but they also come to the board and say, here's a suggestion, something that we would have never thought of because we're not in their seats. And I love being able to have that communication with them, pass it back and forth, and sometimes we can accomplish that, sometimes there's a reason that we can't, but at least it being asked, then we can have that conversation and get down to why it can't be, or let's implement that and get that rolling for the kids and for the teachers to be able to be the most successful.
I think student success is the students becoming the best version of themselves that they can be. You can't fit it all into one broad stroke. Every kid's different. You can't hammer a square peg into a round hole. And how you get there is by putting the students in a position to succeed. Not just individual attention, but guiding them to getting to where they want to be, getting to where they need to be. I think that's the best way I can think of it.
I have to agree. It's hard to define student success because it's different for each individual. Some kids may find success through athletics, and that's a cornerstone of their academics. It teaches them hard work ethic, to challenge themselves. And some kids, that manifests through academics alone, because not everybody's an athlete. But as far as trying to define it for each person, it's impossible. I think the kids all need to be challenged and stimulated. I have a friend that has a very young child in this district who is extremely gifted, extremely intelligent. They give this kid his homework. He's done with it in 2 minutes every day, and then he sits there and he has nothing to do sometimes because he's so smart. That kid needs to be pushed. He needs more stuff. He needs to keep his mind busy because it's very advanced, or bump him up, keep pushing him up in levels until he feels like he's challenged in earnest. As far as supporting the staff to do it, I'd say teachers are like anything else. They're not all created equally, like anybody else, a car salesman, a tradesman, anything. So there's always going to be standouts that just go the extra mile and do everything they can for the kids, and they push them and they just back them and do whatever they can. I don't know if there's some way to get some kind of feedback from students on what they think about teachers, and just in private and kind of see what they think, because it may be skewed in some instances, but it's your best real world feedback is the students themselves as far as the teachers and which ones are doing the best that they can. And we've got to keep striving to get the best staff we can. The better the staff, the better the school, period. You're going to push everybody.
Yeah, I think student success is kind of a combination of, again, not one broad stroke for every student, but in a general sense, what is that student capable of? What are their goals? And I think that's where I would pull parents in too, right? Because I'll be honest, my child's definition of success might be a little lower than mine sometimes, right? Maybe it's not just my kid, but maybe it is. And so, right, like parents really know their kids and can see their potential. And so I think that's where it's kind of a collaborative effort, right? To say, okay, what does the student need? Where do they want to go? And that has been the beauty of our district and the student-teacher ratios here, is that I feel like teachers are very invested and engaged in helping to provide that too. So as a school board, right, how do we support teachers in achieving that? I think we do. We need to keep good teaching staff at a manageable level, that they have the capacity to be able to continue that individual input and feedback, and then have that collaboration with parents, have good communication and collaboration to say, okay, and maybe not for this one whole classroom of students, this is what success means for all of them, right? But for this student and family and this student and family, how can we keep providing the staff and then the resources needed to do that?
All right, Christina, next question. What skills and experience from your career will carry over to being an effective board member?
Sure. So being a mechanical engineer by trade, that's what I went to school for. I do a lot of other things as a business owner as well, right? Working with people and keeping track of things and organizing and coming alongside of encouraging. So there's a lot of different areas that I have found being a school board member. It's digging into the data, but it's also personal too. You have to make those connections because you aren't going to be able to make any changes by yourself. It's a group effort on the school board part. It's a group effort on the district-wide part. Even if the school board is all in favor of one thing, they have to get the buy-in and the connections with the people that are going to implement that. So I'd say that coming together with my problem solving as an engineer, I look at things not as a negative to be solved, but as what can we best use to accomplish where we're trying to get. And so that's, to me, that would be the main areas that my engineering would connect to school board.
I'm the permitting and compliance manager for an engineering company. We make wastewater treatment plants for the food and beverage industry. So in my role, I act as the liaison, the meeting point between regulatory agencies and our clients and our construction subcontractors and everybody. So when we do a project, I have to align 3 completely different groups into, to get them going towards our one common goal. We all have the same goal. We all want to make clean water. But how we get there and how much we spend to get there, and if we're going to do some innovative ways, we're going to do it now, if we're going to do it later, we're going to schedule. All of that requires a lot of managing different stakeholders, managing different schedules, and keeping an agile mind, and being able to react and speak knowledgeably on any number of subjects at a moment's notice.
Pardon me, I'm joking here.
Andy, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah.
sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No,
No,
I'm
I'm good,
Okay, are you sure, Andy?
I'm sure. Nobody's listening anyway.
I am.
I've run my own business, local business, for the last 25 years. I deal with hundreds of different customers every year. So you learn to get thick skin, learn to try to make people happy, make everybody happy. It's impossible, you can't do it, but you do what's best as much as you can do. I'm sorry. So I guess what I bring to the table is just common sense. I am just going to do whatever I think is best for the school district and the kids, and that's about it. I don't really sugarcoat anything. It's kind of a blunt instrument. That's it.
Okay. So I'm a nurse. I was a nurse in a hospital for about 15 years, and then just about 5 years ago, moved into a quality and risk management role. And so I feel like that has given me vast experience in a lot of things. But some things, performance improvement, right, process improvement, continually improving, that's a piece of what I get to do every day, right? So looking at a situation, saying, okay, what do we plan? What do we think we need to do here? Let's try that out, and then let's see if that worked or not. And if it didn't, let's start over again, right? Let's just continue that process improvement and problem solving. Collaboration. So quality is a big bucket of a lot of things, but I do get to work with a lot of different roles, a lot of different, patients, providers, outside entities. And so just kind of pulling all that together is something that I regularly do. Definitely a people aspect to my job for sure. When I decided to go back to school, I was very intentional about, I have a nursing background, I'm in healthcare, I know healthcare. But I thought if I'm going to go back to school and pay a bunch of money for another degree, because it is a bunch of money, I want to be intentional about making sure I can get the most out of it that I can. And so I decided to do a master's in business administration because I didn't know business, right? And I only regretted that one time of like, why did I do this? But I think that has really helped just like broaden my mindset into just kind of that business side of things a little bit. And then the risk management side is, right, kind of the legal aspect of things, policy, compliance. And so I feel like, while I don't have education experience, a lot of the things that I do in my role can apply to the school board in a different way and have a diverse perspective.
As a operations manager, I manage a large number of team members at once. I form cross-functional partnerships between different departments, different buildings even, to achieve one common goal. So making sure that I also grow talent. That's one thing that I like doing is building leaders from within, making sure that our leaders are coming from within our building. Internal leaders are better than external, in my opinion. And also continuous improvement. That's another big component of my job as a operations manager. Just always finding better processes or better ways to do those processes.
I started.
Oh. I was worried I was.
I could answer it again if you really like.
You think of more as it goes on.
Yeah.
Great. All right, Brian. How will you separate personal beliefs from school board responsibility?
Well, it's easy to act for the benefit of the greater good. It is a responsibility to be part of, the school board, or on the school board. You have the education of 500 children to think of, as well as, state policies, individual school board policies to think of. So it's as with my current job right now, there are a lot of times when I have to swallow my tongue and go, I'm a hydrologist, I want crazy clean water. But if I have a client who needs this, and if the DNR needs this, and this is the way we have to go, that's the way we have to go. That's for the greater good. So keeping that in mind at all times is how I would do it.
I think it's a pretty simple calculus. If my personal beliefs align with what I deem is the best for the students in the school, all the better. If they don't, just like you, Brian was saying, it's for the greater good. So you're not always going to get what you want the way you want it. So it always has to be the collective before your personal beliefs. I think so. It's really pretty cut and dry in my book.
Yeah, I think, right, it's keeping our eyes on the prize a little bit, right, which is our students and the success of our school. And so I think, right, this is an elected position, obviously, so there's some level of trust in anyone who would choose to vote for any one of us up here, that you are trusting us with your vote to say, okay, we're going to act in the best interest of the people who voted for us. But it's an elected position, so I take that responsibility very seriously. And for me personally, right, I'm not coming into this with any other agenda except to serve our students and our school. And so I think that's the beauty maybe of a diverse board, that people come in with different viewpoints, but if we all have the same goal in mind, I'm sure there can be situations that come up, but what we would be here for the school board to do is for the students in our school.
It's important to be value neutral as a board member, coming to meetings or committee meetings or just in general with an open mind. Being willing to be swayed possibly in a way that is against what you may think going into that meeting thinking. So being open-minded and open to be swayed a different way, but all in the greater good of all the students of the district.
So being on the school board, there's times that we agree and times that we disagree. And so sometimes it's coming around and saying, hey, this was not my decision, but it's our decision. And so that's a big part of it. But also, I don't want anybody to be just like me. I don't know if you guys, but we all bring different perspectives to the table. We are being elected to have our opinions put in there. So there is sort of that, there's a belief, but there's also opinions in what we think is best. So some of that is obviously going to come through. That's why you're picking people. But I also don't think that like I said, everyone has to believe exactly the way that we do. And there are times that I've come into meetings and thought, I'm going down this route, and then we talk and we get more information and say, hey, this was not the best route, and we collaborate together, putting the different ideas into, you know, our new Frankenstein idea that was not anybody's in particular coming in, but as an output of the board. And I think that's the beauty of why we have a multi-person board governance versus just, you know, a king that you just have, not the person that runs the school. So I think that's the great beauty of it.
Andy, how do you balance being a good steward of taxpayer money with the reality that education costs continue to rise?
Oh, boy. That's a good one. I don't have a specific answer to that, to be honest. I think education costs are going to rise like everything else every single year, no matter what. So to be a good steward, we're going to have to try to keep our pencil as sharp as possible on every aspect of the school and the education. But there's definitely going to be certain things that definitely we should not be skimping on, like staff and faculty, I think, are just the core, the basis, the nucleus of the whole school and everything. I think, as I said before, I feel if we have great staff, which we do have great staff, that'll set us apart. It'll boost our enrollment from external sources. People will want to go to school here. If we have good athletics as well, that will also bring more students in. That'll also broaden the tax base. So it starts with staff. We have a great facility. I mean, we pretty much have everything we need. If we just build on a little bit, I think we can keep a good thing going here and try to keep our pencils sharp.
If anyone has the answer to this, I feel like that's the golden ticket,
Yeah.
right? Like this is the question everywhere for all school districts, and there's a lot of factors in it that I will just say I don't even fully understand all of them at this point. But right, like funding is not keeping up with inflation and where it needs to be. There's limits to what the school district can do. And we have to work within our state structure, right? So it may not be ideal, it may not be what people think it should be, but it is what it is. And so I think that's the challenge for the school district, is to say, how can we best solve this for our district here? Maybe not even for the district down the road, but how can we best solve this for our district here? I think it's very important, right? Like recognizing that those decisions have an impact. And so, right, for those of us on the board and all of us here, it's not just, okay, well, this, if we're just making this decision in a vacuum that this is the best thing for the school or the students, okay, but is that in the best interest of those students' families who then have to pay those taxes, right? Like it's a cycle, it's a circle. And so understanding that for every person in our district that it has an impact and being aware of that. And so I think that's where listening becomes really important too, right? We have to want to hear what the people in our district have to say about it as we make those decisions.
It's important to be cognizant of the decisions made, hiring, whether we add additional programs, things of that nature, and really discuss the pros and cons of doing that. Making sure that we are making the right decisions financially for the district, and also making sure that we're making the right decisions for the students. That is our primary goal, is getting them the best education they possibly can get. And just holding ourselves accountable as potential board members, as we are a steward of the community and those dollars that are collected via taxes.
For me, it would be twofold. One is I've been meeting with a number of people in Madison, our legislators, trying to help them understand not only the funding side, but when we have a lot of red tape and rules and regulations, that all adds costs. So every time there's a rule, there's got to be somebody to check the rule and verify the rule. And if you're violating the rule, what's the punishment, right? There's all that is, yes, more funding would be great, but we can make up for some of that if we cut some of those regulations back. So that has been one area that I've been working with. The other one would be a project that I've been slowly working on. We got a little distracted with some of the referendum and things like that on the school board, and now our policy rework. But basically taking our budget and making it down to a granular level so that each teacher, each coach, every area knows exactly how much we had planned for them in that budget and having real live time data of where they are that year. So they can know I've got this much left. If you got to go over it, I'm not saying that the school would say no, but come to us and tell us. It's just like having a personal budget and broken down, some people do it in envelopes or whatever. That can help to say, do we really need the item or is it a nice to have? And sometimes we do have to invest in things, don't get me wrong, but just being able to track every dollar of that, I think really would be a big asset to us and also help us to invest in the places that we're intending to invest in.
All right, a lot of good answers here. Like Katie said, this is a very difficult, almost impossible to answer question, but I think it would start with, obviously, working as efficiently as you can, making every dollar that you have count and spending it in the best possible way, and identifying when you're spending taxpayer dollars that you're spending them on the items that would make the most impact to the students. Not being afraid to say, hey, this is important, this is making a huge impact even though it might cost money. Looking at it from a holistic standpoint, sometimes taking a step back and figuring out what is best for the district as a whole, rather than laser focusing in on individual items, I think could also help.
All right. Katie, what might your approach be to listening to teacher input before major curriculum or policy decisions are made?
Well, first I have to say I don't know what the current structure is for listening to teacher input before those decisions are made. So I guess I would like to understand that a little bit better and evaluate if what is in place is currently effective or not. Are teachers feeling heard? Are they feeling like they are a part of decisions, or are they feeling like, right, they're just being told what they have to do and that's how it goes? I'm a firm believer in kind of a shared governance model, that the people doing the work should really be the ones, right, giving input into what those decisions should be. Because it's really easy from outside of the realm to say, well, this is what needs to happen, make it happen, right? But the people doing the work can say, well, that's not going to work because of these 7 reasons. And if you would have listened to us, right, we could have told you that to begin with. So I think understanding what the structure is currently, and then if there's not structure or good structure, that we would need to put that in place, because I think it's really important to have that feedback.
There are a couple of things that the district does currently to kind of give teachers a voice in their day-to-day lives. Mrs. Norrie brought up QIT. I know that's very important to a lot of teachers, getting their voices heard, getting their opinions heard and elevated to the school board level. I know also that occasionally, most recently for the school schedule, those kind of emails go out and give the teachers that kind of choice. So just giving out those surveys to allow the teachers to get their voices heard.
So that our teachers are the ones that use our curriculum day in and day out. They I'm sure there's certain parts that work well, certain parts that don't, and oftentimes they're left to be supplementing, right, by going and trying to find different pieces. Their job, they're trained in, is how to teach the kids. It shouldn't be stacked on their responsibility to have to additionally change that curriculum as it needed. So being able to understand what their needs are, and is there already a written curriculum, or can we create one that is broad, that works across, all the different sections of a grade, for example. Mm-hmm. If something's really working well for one class, sharing that information so that the teachers can focus on the teaching and not having to spend their nights and weekends searching for a sheet that teaches extra things because the curriculum didn't provide that for them.
I think teacher input is extremely important. Just to be able to have their feelings and opinions heard and validated, in order to get, in some cases, if it's a difficult curriculum change, in order to get them to buy in, to be able to fully embrace what's going on. Just simply forcing changes rarely works well. So there needs to be a two-way communication between the board and the teachers.
I'd have to say that the teachers are absolutely paramount in their input. They're the boots on the ground. They're the ones doing all the work. And if they should have full input in the curriculum, and if any changes are gonna be made. And if you have a teacher or multiple teachers say this curriculum doesn't make sense, this isn't gonna work, they're the ones you should be listening to, because they're the ones that are gonna know if it's gonna work or if it's not gonna work. There's definitely a basis to it. It's just no different than if you're running a crew on a construction site and you're a foreman and your lead guys are telling you, hey, this is not an intelligent way to go about this, this isn't working, we're not gonna see results. You should listen to that, because this is their life. They are vested in this. This is what they do for a living. They're going to tell you what works. They're going to tell you what doesn't work. And it's going to be directly impactful on what the kids get out of it. So I'd say, yeah, they should have a voice in anything that has to do with curriculum, because they're the ones that are facilitating it for all the students.
Justin, how involved do you think the school board should be in selecting books read in school?
I don't feel the school board should be that involved at all. I believe the teachers and the librarians are the subject matter experts. They understand the curriculum, they understand child development as well as students' needs. I believe they should be mainly involved in those types of decisions.
In general, I'd say that we are an overall, board of not getting into the day-to-day. However, sometimes issues come up and are brought to the board level because they're not being heard at a lower level. We've had issues where a book that was being promoted that was fairly racist, and so having that come up and addressing that is a level that the community has a voice at the school board. And I'm not saying it starts there, start with your teachers or whatnot, but they can escalate it to that. That's part of our role. So I'd say in the every day-to-day, certainly we're kind of at that 1,000-foot view, but occasionally when there becomes an issue, an arbitration issue or whatnot, that is when the school board would be pulled in to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree with Christina. I mean, it should be done at the individual level. And if there is an issue, then it'd be brought up to the school board. There's really no reason to put a blanket order on this can't be, here, or this and this and this, with very few exceptions. Yeah.
I pretty much agree with Christina and Brian. I think it's not the school board's place to dictate as a whole, what's acceptable and what's not, but there's certain exceptions to that. There's been a lot of instances in schools where there's some pretty racist and pretty sexually explicit books that are part of the curriculum in some schools, and that I don't think has any place in this school. So I think it would be a complete case-by-case basis, and as long as it's in the status quo and there's nothing just absurd, I don't think the school board should be involved in it. But if it is, they definitely should be.
As I read and start to understand what the role of the school district is, I don't see this being a line item, right, as something that the district is directly responsible for. I do see it being that more 1,000-foot view level, right? So the school board is responsible for making sure that we can provide, right, staff and administrators to carry out those things. So to me, that is kind of where this backs up to at the board level, to say, do we have people here who can carry out what they need to? Who are the educators who know what that needs to be? That being said, I feel like the school board is the safety net for a lot of things potentially, right? But it's a safety net. It's not the driving force behind things.
Christina, what role do you feel parents should play in the district?
Sure. So our parents are one of the biggest factors in our kids' success. We partner with the parents as a school district, as the teachers, administrators, everybody, coaches, right? Because when we look at what is their home life, are they working with the kids when they get home? Do the parents even understand that they're sending homework home, whatever that might be? We're gonna get a synergy working with the parents, and in no case should we ever hide things from parents, right? Parents are the sole responsibility, the children are the sole responsibility of the parents to raise. They're trusting us by sending them here, and we need to make sure we keep that trust and keep the open conversations. And sometimes that's making sure that we send an email as a teacher saying, hey, your kiddo was struggling today, whatever it might be. But keeping that open communication, I think, is paramount for having excellent education, for helping with the mental, anxieties, things like that as well. And in general, I really think our school does a great job of that.
Yeah, parents are the primary support system for all of our students. Their role is to make sure their children are prepared to come to school, are well taken care of at home, and able to support the teachers when there is an issue with in the classroom or with learning or additional assistance needed at home, and maintaining that communication and willing to listen to the recommendations of the teacher or the administration.
Yeah, I'd say the parents are the taxpayers. They're paying for the party, per se. Parents these days are very busy between academics, athletics. Both parents almost rather not work full-time jobs. Getting your kids up, getting them fed, getting them to school, making sure going to school, making sure their grades they're doing well in class. Parents are everything to any school district, and there's got to be a constant open line of communication. If something's wrong, they need to know immediately. They need to have the chance to correct it, and not every parent is going to be willing to do that or be able to do that. So on that level, any extra support that can be levied from the school would be great, but the parents should be the primary driving force for all the kids. And as long as you're communicating with them openly and often, I think it's kind of a better recipe for success. Nobody wants to say, oh, hey, by the way, Johnny didn't come to school 4 out of the last 9 days. Did you get our email? Oh, no, I didn't. Did you get our phone calls? No. Okay, well, communicate, over-communicate. That seems to be the best medicine always.
I think parents should be as actively involved as participants as they're willing and able to be, right? So I think I said it before, for the most part, parents really do know their students the best, and they have that bigger picture and kind of write that greater good for what their students need. But I think we also need to recognize, and Andy, you kind of alluded to this, right? Not every parent is in the same situation. And so I don't think that there should be expectations necessarily, right, that some parents can't meet because of whatever their home situation is or life situation might be, because that does impact kids in a different way too, right? If they're the family that their parent can't do what they need to. So I think it is a little bit individual. But again, just knowing, right, parents have their kids' best interests at heart. They know what their kids need for the most part. And so as much as they are willing to be engaged is good. And that does start with communication so that they know what's going on and where their input is needed too.
Education starts at home, right? At a very young age, we're taught anything from walking, talking, things like that. How to blow bubble gum or blow bubbles with bubble gum. Just making sure that that open line of communication is there with the parents. That is key. Getting parents buy-in on their students' education is important to their overall success.
Ryan, how do you plan to listen to community members who don't typically attend board meetings?
I am open and available and around the community. Quite often I attend sporting events. I'm able to be called on my cell phone. I'm able to stop by my house right next to Hardwick Motorsports. And it's, if you ever need to get a hold of me or you need to contact me, like I said, I'm always open. I answer emails often. I am used to speaking in public, used to being stopped and asked questions, so just by making myself accessible.
100% accessible. Anybody can call me anytime. All I do is answer my phone all day. It's always on me, 24/7. I am as easy to get a hold of as anybody in the world and 100% available. all the time. So I prefer a phone call over an email or a text because I'm pretty analog. So
I would say it's probably fair to say that most of our community members don't attend board meetings, right? And so I think that just kind of has to be the norm for communication, is not to expect that that's the place that communication is going to happen. So yeah, I think, right, kind of as I mentioned before, like I'm a big one in soliciting feedback from people. And so I do think, you know, just naturally I'm in a lot of diverse different opportunities and areas throughout the community and with the school and different things that I or my kids might be involved in. But I think there's other opportunities too, right? Just being available for communication. I have loved what Mr. Gurin has done, right, with lunch with the superintendent, and that doesn't necessarily mean that all the board members need to do lunch with the board members, but maybe from time to time, right? Just how can we open those lines of communication for people who either can't attend board meetings or don't want to, right? Don't want to come on this forum. But I think the biggest thing is just making sure that that listening is kind of an active listening. So if somebody does reach out via email or phone or whatever it might be, that board members just respond to that communication in some way and say, let's find a way, whatever works for that person, let's find a way to have that conversation.
Yep, I agree with the previous three, just making sure myself is as accessible as possible, open to feedback, and responds as promptly as possible.
Just being part of the community is a huge component here. Essentially, when I'm out and about talking to people, they'll have a question about why does something work this way, especially with maybe the referendum. That's kind of a more complicated item to understand. And being able to explain, this is how I'm seeing it, and what are your thoughts? We have a lot of good ideas coming in from the community. So I think both in a listening and in a communication back to them is important. So I've been using social media, trying to get it out there. I know we've, as a district, have tried to figure out how to connect to people that aren't parents and are still a part of the community, but they're not coming to things like this. That is one of our hardest areas to connect to. So a lot of it is word of mouth, right? How else to get a hold of them? You know, maybe going door to door. That's where I'm going to be in this next month here, going door to door and say, hey, what questions do you have about school? What items do you want to see? And we may have some great ideas out there that are just not capitalized on because we haven't heard them yet. So just trying to collect those together into where they can be utilized.
Andy, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing our district at this time, and how should the board address them?
honestly, I don't know how to answer that. I feel like our district is doing quite well. I'm gonna go back to the staffing, keeping great teachers, great staff, and that'll just keep the school healthy and growing, which is ultimately what we want it, where we want it. So I feel like overall, as a whole, the district is doing quite well. You know, I think this is a great place, and I've been here my whole life. My kids go here, so there's no other place I would rather have them be, you know?
I think some of the challenges facing our district are not unique to just our district here, right? We've talked about funding and budgets and referendums and all of that a little bit already. So that is across the state. That's not unique to Johnson Creek. But not every school district is our size, doesn't have the same taxpayer base. And so I think that's something that we need to look at, right, at a local level. There's not a big Band-Aid that can fit everything for that. But it also, like, our district, or our population of Johnson Creek has tripled just in the time that I've lived here. And so I think that's something too, right? I'm sure the board has had conversations about that already. But just how do we navigate that? How do we capitalize on that? How do we, again, keep the strengths of our small school that we have? We have a lot of them, but then how do we keep up with, and not even just keep up with, but stay ahead of the growth that is happening in our area?
I think one of the biggest challenges that our district faces, along with nearly every district in Wisconsin, is finances. Although we did have the referendum that did pass in 2024, the likelihood of a referendum coming up again once that expires is great. So just making sure that the community understands that as board members, we are communicating that out with the community, that we're in a much better spot financially than we were pre-referendum, but unless the state funding formula changes, we will probably have to go to referendum again. Just getting that communication out there and being transparent on those types of things.
Essentially, it'd be twofold. Obviously, we have finances, right? And with the referendum, no one's saying, hey, I've got extra money that I'm hoping that will increase taxes for the school. If you do, we can name something after you here. I guarantee it. But yeah, hey, whatever, right? It's available. But that's a huge part for everybody in our community, making every dollar count and making sure that that money is getting to what is going to help in the classrooms, right? Obviously, we have administration and things like that, but not letting it get stuck in bureaucracy, getting it to the kids. So just seeing where we can pull things together on that front. And then in academics, we're doing a great job, but I know across the country after COVID, a lot of schools have really been struggling, right? And a lot of kids individually. So just because some kids are not struggling doesn't mean we should forget about the ones that are. So helping them to get caught up and excel would be a continual goal to not just rest on our laurels, but to continue to improve in both academics and in our efficiency of the spending.
Johnson Creek is, we're like Katie said, we're undergoing some rapid growth. I mean, there's apartment buildings going up everywhere. We just opened up more building areas over by Centennial Park. And growth creates growth. You know, a larger populace creates a more enticing environment for employers and vice versa. So what we need to do is to keep ahead of that, be able to accommodate growth in the enrollment while still providing the same level of teaching, of an academic environment that we have right now.
Yeah, I have to say that the town is growing population-wise, but does that translate to higher enrollment numbers? Because when I graduated from this school in 1996, I think there was 34 kids in my graduating class, and I don't know what the class numbers are now, but I think they're probably around, 50 or so? I mean, school choice and stuff, not to get on a tangent, but that has a lot to factor. But we want this community to grow. We want the kids to go to school here. And we're still a small school. Even with growth, we're gonna be a small school compared to anybody else around here. You know, so as long as we can keep it more of a personal basis for education where everybody knows everybody, and if you need to talk to somebody, you can talk to them, great, you know. But I think we just need to work on getting the people to go to school here, to grow it.
Katie, what does accountability look like to you for students, families, administrators, and the board itself?
I think transparency, right, is where you have to start with accountability, because you have to really know what's going on. So I think that relates a little bit back to the communication question and how do we communicate as a board to what is occurring, because right, the people who voted for us can only keep us accountable if they know what's going on. And so yes, things are publicly posted, but how do we get that information out there in a way that's understood and people really understand what's going on? I think for students, right, it's a big piece of just building and letting them know, like, we're here for your success. And so things might look different for different students, but how do we help keep kids accountable to what is going to best help their success? And I think the same thing, right, for teachers and administrators, just kind of that open level of transparency to say, hey, we're all in this together and we all want to improve together. So sometimes there might be hard conversations or hard decisions that need to happen to be able to do that, but how can we work together to address those things?
I think for accountability, you have to be open to feedback. And able to take that feedback and reflect and see if changes need to be made. Making sure that we communicate to the community that the things that are happening, the successes, the things that need improvement on, the issues that we have in the district, like finances and things of that nature, and how we plan on addressing those things in the moment and how we plan to address them in the future as well. So it's that it's that it's not something that we, that we're trying to fix something that happened before, that it's something that we're actually planning ahead to.
So a big part of accountability is having goals. Where are we going, right? So short of us staying out of jail, that's going to be cut by the law, right? But where do the community want us to be going? Where do we as a board want it to go? Where does the administration want us to go? And then that's that communication piece. And sometimes it's not as easy as, you know, we'll get reports of this is how much of our percentage of our budget we've spent for the year, but it's not linear. So, you know, if we're halfway through the year and we've spent 60% or 70% of our budget, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So one of the areas that, when I went to the Wisconsin Association of School Board Conference, they were talking about, can we graph this year over year so we can kind of see trends, and that will help us with the accountability piece, because even as we're trying our best, we can always improve in how we understand data, put data together, and then how we communicate that out. But essentially, starting with what our goals are and clearly communicating that to everybody on all levels, it would be great.
Well, accountability is, it's keeping your word, following through on the things that you say you're going to do. And not just holding yourself accountable, but holding others accountable to what they had said they were going to do and the promises they had made. When that doesn't happen, then things get missed, people fall through the cracks. And if there's a lapse in accountability for long enough, then that can turn a small issue into a large issue.
I agree. I think accountability basically stems from doing what you're saying you're gonna do. Once you're gonna do something, turn around and just put it in the back burner and just tell people what they wanna hear, and they're like, I don't really care, I'm not gonna do that. Do what you say you're gonna do. And if you don't do what you say you're gonna do, then there should be some accountability from the people that are upstream from you. You know, you should have to follow through with your actions, what you say you're gonna do, and that stands for everybody at every level. Transparency, you're saying, you know, let people know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Be open for communication. If people question why you're doing something, so you can help facilitate that. You know, just be honest, you know.
Oh, did you start?
Sorry, yep.
All right. This will be our final question. Thank you all for, well, I'm about to ask the final question. You've all provided very thoughtful answers to some pretty tough questions. And again, they weren't given any amount of ability to prepare for this forum. And I think they all did very well thinking quickly on their feet. So the closing question, we'll let each one of you respond. Just in summary, why should voters trust you to balance educational needs with the financial realities of our small community?
All right, balancing education needs with the financials of the community. Was that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Why should voters trust you to balance educational needs with the financial realities of a small community?
All right, so just from my career, we have to balance budgets, making sure that we hit goals. So I have the experience with balancing financials. So just putting that towards our district and making sure that we are providing what students need in a financially to make it financially, physically responsible way for our tax base.
So throwing more money at academics is not necessarily going to fix things, right? Think about the teachers that you had that have been most influential. It wasn't because they were paid more or got certain benefits. A lot of times it's the community that we build here that is really the big impactful part. So whether that be in teacher retention, you know, when we look at the facilities for what the environment is a classroom safe, things like that are way more important on teacher retention and student learning than any amount of monies that we spend to teach the kids. Obviously we need to spend monies, but making sure that those go towards the areas that are most needed. Let's look and see, and we're always, you know, as a board, we're always saying, hey, what can we do? Can we get this done in the most efficient way possible? I think that's super important to never lose track of. But again, I don't think that the monies and education have to be at odds. I think that they're two individual things that our community and our school district can really excel in.
This is a burner of a question. Congratulations for answering this one. Why should you trust me? Simply because I care. I mean, I could say that, yeah, you know, at my job, I balance budgets of millions of dollars in construction projects, you know, between different stakeholders, you know, and there's a lot of times that places just can't spend a lot of money, so we have to, you know, be able to encourage that. But it's all about caring. It's all about caring for the community. It's all about caring for the school district. It's all about caring for the kids at the school. I know a lot of kids here from just coaching and from my kids going here, my wife's family, and I care about them, and I care about their success, and I care about this community. Coming from Watertown, it's refreshing to come down here and have a community you can care about, and that cares back. And I think that's the most important thing and why you should trust me.
You should trust me because what you see is what you get. That's the truth of the matter. I've run a business for 25 years in the community, so I know what it's like trying to make the numbers jive. It doesn't always work. And we don't want to add more levy more taxes on our parents, and especially people that aren't parents that don't have kids in the school that are still paying taxes here, you know, that are retired. I mean, that's not what they want to do with their money. But I think we can still get great teachers that are involved, that care as much as anybody else does, like I do. And if they care and they show it and that transfers to the kids and it makes kids want to learn, if they push them, if they have drive, if they find the kids that are having problems and address those and show them that they care about them, not that they're just waiting for them to graduate and leave and take their luggage with them, I think that goes a long ways. I think that this school would prosper as long as we have great faculty, which we do, but there's always room for more. The more kids we get enrolled, the more faculty we need, and we need good faculty. So I think that, as Christina said, that you don't have to throw money at education to make it better necessarily. I think you can find people that love what they do and try to recruit them and get them here. And I think that it would pay back in spades.
When I hear this question, the part of the question that I really hear is, why should voters trust me, right? Because it's not just about the educational needs and balancing that with finances, right? It's saying, as a board member, why should you trust me to make any of the decisions that a board needs to make, and that the board is tasked with making? So I think first I would say, like, integrity and character are top of the list. For me, personally, I think who I am is the same in every regard, and I think the people that know me would say that. And so I think, right, that is number one. That will always shine through in anything else, is that character and integrity need to come first. I will also just be very transparent in saying, and I've maybe mentioned this a little bit, is that I am not coming into this saying I know the answers to all of these questions, I know what the issues are, I know how school boards work. I don't, right? So if you didn't pick up on that tonight, I'll just tell you now, I don't. But I think that personally and professionally, right, I'm not afraid to step into hard things. And so hopefully that has been clear, that I'm not afraid to jump into things that I don't know. I'm not intimidated by that. I'm not afraid to have to do the work to figure it out. And so that would be my approach coming into this, is that would be my hope, if you vote for me, right, that, or any of these people up here, that you could trust us to do the work that we are tasked with doing in this position.
Thank you again for everybody's time and engagement. We did not get through all of the submitted questions, but I hope that you got a lot of your own questions answered and that you feel you've learned a lot and can confidently go ahead and vote now. So thanks again for coming, and let's give the candidates a round of applause.